What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to DSM Pregame Live Sixers Bulls edition, streaming to you guys exclusively here on DSM Media's YouTube channel. I'm one half of your host, Dylan Davis. You can find me on Twitter at DylanJD98. To my right, my co-host Scotty. You can find him as well on Twitter at Scotty Drown. You guys can find all of our shows and content on Twitter as a group at DSM_media. The Philadelphia 76ers are on a 8-game win streak. It is an NBA high at the moment. Joel Embiid, 9 games of 30 plus in a row. I believe, Scotty, he was the player of the week in the Eastern Conference. The Sixers are flying high down this home stretch here as we get ready to gear up for the playoffs. How are you feeling on this Monday night, man? I know you're getting down to the Wells Fargo Center shortly, so you'll have a good seat, a better seat than the rest of us tonight.
Yeah, man, I'm about to crack my first Corona premiere after this. Get a nice lime slice going in there, and I'm gonna head down to the Wells Fargo Center, like you said. But I'm excited, man. Embiid's playing out of his mind. Obviously, he's getting the credit that he deserves as of right now. In my opinion, it's credit that he's deserved the last 3 seasons, in my opinion. But nonetheless, better now than never, right? Better late than never when it comes to that. And the Sixers, I mean, you can't speak enough. You can't say enough about how good this team is playing as a whole. Obviously, Bede's playing at that MVP level, but his other guys are playing along with him. We've seen other guys in the last few games step up. Tobias has gotten out of the slump. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to move past how insanely good Embiid is playing right now, how insanely great he's playing. It's hard to move past that point and then look at how good James Harden is playing, right? He's playing out of his mind right now. There's been comparisons between him and Jimmy Butler from the year, a couple years back when we had that squad with Jimmy, when we first got him and Tobias. We're making these comparisons between how good Harden's playing and how good Jimmy was playing at that point. The role players, the balance of the team, the depth of the team is at an all-time high. You've seen the last 2 games, the bench has been cleared out because they're playing that good. Mind you, it's competition that they should be doing that against, but they're doing it, right? And this team just looks completely different than what I've seen in the past years. I know everybody loves complain about the second-round exits. As far as everything that they could do up to this point to show that they're a different team, they have done that, and that's all that we can ask for them of them at this point.
I think what you just said is very important because there is that portion of the fan base still, and you and I are probably in the same boat. Like, yes, you guys are still correct.
I understand it.
Like, there could still be that second round roadblock, and if we come up short yet again, no matter how great Embiid has been, no matter how great Harden has been, or Doc has had a positive year, then we're going to be right back to square one, right? But up until that point, right now, you cannot ask for anything more. And it's funny, man, you bring up the Embiid. We pulled up the Embiid comment, and you brought up how great he's playing, and the MVP odds, Vegas has totally shifted in his favor. The national narrative is starting to change. And it's funny, last week, the last pregame show we did together, you and I came on and we talked Jokic, Embiid, MVP, and we were both kind of fired up, like almost like, no. Like, stay like I don't even want him to win it, right? Like, just leave that fire lit under him. And I had a conversation with my uncle over the weekend, and I kind of changed my tune a little bit because for him personally, because it's his only. This is it. This is going to be his only shot to actually get it. And kind of as that like arrogant, like no, stay on that side. Let him have that fire on him for the playoffs, right? Give it to Jokic again. No, for the person, for Joel Embiid, you want his greatness to be rewarded. You want him to be rewarded, and he deserves the MVP. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens, man. But he has been unbelievable.
Yeah, it's such a great point because I think what you're basically saying there is that, put down all the haterade, right? Everything aside, all the barriers that have been there the last couple of years from him getting this award. Put all of that down and appreciate what Embiid is doing in the moment. And I think that's what we had to take a step back and do. Like, okay, we're moving so fast throughout this season. It's going down. We're the 3rd seed in the East, 2nd seed in the East. Now, like, it moves so fast that you can't just stop and appreciate what Embiid's doing sometimes. And I think just looking in a retrospective manner, if we're a year from now, or let's not even say a year, 10 years from now, we look back during this 3-4 year stretch by Embiid where he's been constantly in that best player of the world conversation. and he doesn't have anything to show for it as far as an accolade, a championship. Obviously, we want the championship. That's number one. But you would like to see him have some type of accolade to basically exemplify how great he's been during this time period. So yeah, it does mean something to an extent. Like I know we said that it doesn't. It does.
This comment just shows you how out of this world he's playing right now. Like, dude, forget 3 years ago, 2 years ago, last year when he led the league in scoring. He's doing it at an even elevated level at the moment, dude.
Really
Obviously,
efficient.
March Madness is going on. The games are on all day long. The Sixers are playing the Hornets. So you're kind of flipping back and forth. I don't know what you were doing, but I was flipping back and forth because I didn't expect it to be much of a contest. It wasn't. But while I was tuned into the game, dude, that pick and pop between him and Harden, that mid-range, that little come around the screen, roll, pocket pass right at the elbow. Scotty, he does not miss. You could make an argument that there is one player in the world, in this league, that shoots it better from the mid-range than Joel Embiid. That's Kevin Durant, right? Like one of the greatest mid-range shooters of all time. Joel Embiid is at that level right now, and his greatness, like you said, and right here. Oh, and on like 65% true shooting.
It sent chills through my body when you said that, because it's something that I feel like maybe even Sixers fans can't even admit to themselves sometimes, but especially the general NBA community can't really admit to themselves right now what they're watching, because Embiid is arguably the best scorer in the world right now, like the best offensive scorer in the world. He's leading the NBA in scoring, obviously, right? Mm-hmm. But when you look at him play, how do you stop him? It is literally impossible. He's on that Kevin Durant level. Obviously, you can argue quickness, this and that. This dude is one of the quickest 7-footers that we've ever seen. The footwork, the fundamentals that he has down after only playing basketball for such a short
IQ
period.
has just continued to grow.
IQ, it's ridiculous. Even in these games against the Hornets and the Pacers they played the other night, Halliburton, you can see in these games where he is trying to make plays for his teammates in these moments. He's trying to do that better. He even said that after the game against the Pacers, no Harden, right? When things break down, no teammates are open, he can't find a way to get the ball to his. You see how automatic it is. He's like, oh, well, I'll just score it then. And then he shoots over 2 or 3 guys and he makes a mid-range. He's unstoppable. He's unguardable. You talk about deep bags in the NBA when it comes to offensive skill sets. His bag is endless. You see Dirk shots, you see Kobe shots, you see MJ shots, you see MJ crossovers, you see Euro steps, spin moves into the lane.
That's the part that's not normal. That's the part that's just not normal. Like, yes, guys try to emulate previous stars and their heroes, right? And you see the comparisons from Kobe to Jordan and their footwork and the turn and the fadeaway and all that. He's 7 feet. He's the center. Like, that's the part when you put it side by side, clip by clip of him and MJ and him and Kobe and him and this, it shouldn't happen. But that's how great he is. And I know we've spent the first 8 or 9 minutes of the show only talking Joel Embiid. I think it's just for the fact of how special he has been. And it has catapulted, if I can speak correctly, this Sixers team to another level at the moment. Yeah. You mentioned he's in the conversation for all-time great scorers in right now. If you look back in 5, 10, 15, 20 years, Scotty, he's probably going to go down as the greatest Philadelphia 76er ever for the time being. We've had Allen Iverson. We've had his MVP. We've had his championship run. We had Dr. J, Julius Erving. We've had Charles Barkley. We've had Moses Malone, Wilt Chamberlain. He is the most talented Sixer ever. It's the bottom line.
Yeah, definitely, Chile. Shout out to Brock. He's the one that got me honestly hip to the moves that Embiid was emulating. Like, honestly, I got that from Brock Landis. So definitely shout out to him, because he puts them, side by side. You see it literally fluid. Embiid's just a sponge, man. You see the comment here from Chile as well, soaking in what Harden is a point guard / shooting guard, and he is soaking in that knowledge to take his game to the next level.
His comment after the game is what I loved even more.
Yeah,
I don't know if you saw that, but whatever question he was asked, he said, at times you would think, or he used to feel or thinks he needs to be a better playmaker for his team or whatever he said. But he said, I don't need to now when I have the best playmaker in the league, referring to his point guard and James Harden. And that's what's beautiful. And you mentioned the comparison of the 2018-19 team with Jimmy and when Tobias came over here. And yes, for the longest time, for the last 5 years or so, that was the goalpost, right? That was the mountaintop. We have not had a team better than that. This team is better than that, and they're showing it to you night in and night out, man. Let's get into this team some more. Is there anything else that stuck out to you besides the great Joel Embiid over the weekend at Charlotte and at Indiana before we get into this Bulls matchup?
Yeah, so there was a few things. Obviously, Tobias Harris, he got on track. He had 18 points against the Hornets, 24 points against the Pacers. You just want to see that against better competition. That's been the thing that we want to see from Tobias. We want to see it consistently, and we want to see it when it matters most. The other thing, Trez, I said they emptied out the bench. Everyone except Trez in both of these games, man, which says a lot. Dwayne Dedmon is getting playing time before Trez. So it speaks to where Trez is at as far he's out of this rotation completely. The only reason he's not off the team is because of his contract, right? Aside from that, what I really, really love to see, obviously Maxey did his thing over the weekend, but D'Anthony Melton, right? It was specifically against the Pacers. He's starting to look a little bit healthier, right? He had a little bit more bounce in that game. You saw 2 dunks from him, 6 steals in that matchup against the Pacers. So it looks like he's getting a little bit healthier, getting a little bit of that athleticism that we saw in Memphis. Back now that he's in Philly, obviously he's been dealing with that back problem. And then getting Jalen McDaniels back against the Pacers as well. That's good. Obviously, that we didn't know how serious that hip injury was when he went out just last week. But aside from that, just good, solid, really good overall wins over the weekend where you didn't have to have Embiid playing in the fourth quarter. You sat Harden in the last game, so you didn't need him to get that W. And this is exactly how it's supposed to go when you're facing bottom-feeding, Eastern Conference teams. So I was impressed, but obviously nothing to write home about against the Pacers and Hornets.
No, and just to wrap things up here, I think that's perfectly said, because while it's nothing to write home about, and we don't get off for this, you and I joked a couple weeks ago about doing these pregame shows, and it's like, yes, as tough as the second half schedule was looking with Memphis and Miami twice, and Boston and Milwaukee. It doesn't suck, but it's like, wow, can they get through this? But it makes the pre-games more fun, right? When we have to come on here and it's like, oh, we had the Magic for the 4th time tonight, it gets a little grueling, and you're like, oh, what are we going to talk about? However, on the reverse side of that, seeing the Sixers actually take care of business like this is the best part, because you got through that stretch, the first 7-8 games post All-Star break, 500 or better. And now you took advantage of the easier part of your schedule where, dude, they're realistically, Scotty, going to win 55 games this year.
Yeah.
Like right around 55 games, right? So that in itself is a great check mark for a team to have, man. But let's get into this matchup tonight. Obviously, we'll start with keys to victory here. You're talking about DeMar DeRozan, Nick Vucevic, Zach LaVine coming to town tonight, and it feels like Zach LaVine constantly hits 4, 5, 6 threes against the 76ers. So I'm going to throw this one to you. I'm going to throw this one to you first. Win the 3-point line and kind of run more defensively, run Chicago off the 3-point line. You and I joke all the time about the fact that the Sixers are first in 3-point field goal percentage, but it doesn't seem like they shoot them at a high volume, right? They're actually 10th in the league, but they shoot 12.8. Reversely, the Chicago Bulls are 30th in 3-point field goal attempts per game. So we know in this day and age, threes beat twos. Simple math, right? So if you can win the 3-point line, if you can run Chicago off the 3-point line, you're talking Nick Vucevic, you're talking DeMar DeRozan, the biggest mid-range player maybe of our generation, right? When you think back. That in itself should be an advantage for the Sixers at home tonight. So running Chicago off the 3-point line, don't let Zach LaVine have double-digit threes again. And I think that in itself will come away with a positive on the defensive side.
Yeah, I think that's a great call out, Dylan. And I have the same kind of idea behind my first key to victory here as well, which was just control DeRozan and Zach LaVine. Don't let them game break, right? I don't know if you guys used to play NBA Street, but once you get, maybe it was NFL, I can't remember. There used to be game breaker mode, and they just go Super Saiyan on you. But nonetheless, don't let Zach LaVine, don't let DeMar DeRozan do that tonight. And I think you have a good chance of winning this game. Along with that, it's the 3-point line, right? How do teams beat teams that are better than them? Obviously the Sixers are the better team coming into this matchup. A lot of the time, the game plan is to shoot a lot of threes, see if you can get hot, and then you can, maybe beat a team that you weren't supposed to beat. You saw the Pacers try to do that against us. Obviously, it didn't work out. But to your point, you got to hit shots from the 3-point line. And that's where a lot of our role players get their points, right? You talk about George Niang, Daniel House can shoot it, Shake can shoot it. D'Anthony Melton gets a lot of his points from the 3-point line. So a lot of the other guys get their points there. Even Tobias, right? He gets a lot of, whenever he's on, it's when he's on from the 3-point line. It's when he hits multiple threes, 3+ threes in a game. That's when you see the best Tobias. So just to your point, making sure you win that 3-point battle, but also don't let DeRozan get a 40-point game tonight, right? That's Embiid's job. We don't need to let the guys on the other teams do that. Zach LaVine can't hit 11 threes tonight, or you'll see a similar result as the second game we played against the Bulls this season. So I'm with you. Just don't let them game break. Don't let one person come out here and light it up, but also don't let them light it up from the 3-point line as well.
So I'm looking, I got to say, man, a lot of my keys are defensive tonight for the 76ers against Chicago. And it's just for the simple fact that Chicago is not a punch you in the mouth, outscore you, fancy kind of team. They are 18th in points per game. They are 22nd in offensive rating. But over this last 5-game stretch, you texted me before when we were getting ready for the show, they are playing good ball right now. They have won 4 of their last 5. And over that stretch, they have not had a game with under 113 points. Now, not that that's some crazy number, but it's a viable number, right? So I'm looking at the Sixers tonight, not just running them off the 3-point line and limiting them there. But yeah, man, what can they really do defensively? You mentioned DeMar DeRozan. What are you looking at defensively for the Sixers to do to kind of hone in on the Chicago Bulls team? I was laughing the other night. Obviously, the Bulls are not the Charlotte Hornets. The Hornets scored 82, dude. Yeah. You held the Cavs on the road to 109. You held Washington to 93. So the Sixers have been playing very, very good ball on that side of the floor. What can they do tonight to kind of limit Chicago's offense?
Yeah, I think it's a lot of what we talked about. You have to focus in. I think it starts with DeMar DeRozan, right? During this 5-game stretch, he's averaged 30 points per game in this stretch. In one of those games, he actually had 49 points. So he's actually outplaying his season average at about 25, 26 points per game. So I think the key there is him, right? If he's on, Bulls are going to have a good night, because when he takes attention, then it leaves other guys open and it makes it easier for them. And if we're being honest, they just don't have a real point guard, right? Like, they have Patrick Beverley. He's not your typical playmaking point guard. He's not even your typical floor spacing point guard. He will shoot the 3, but it's one of those things. If he's left wide open, maybe he'll hit 3 threes in that night. It's just an unlucky night. But nonetheless, I think that makes it even more important to step up, guard DeRozan. Make sure you're guarding him as best as you can. They got to be focused. They got to know his tendencies. I think that's the biggest thing when guarding DeMar DeRozan. You see a lot of that mid-range work like you discussed earlier, but you'll see a lot of pump fakes, a lot of, great footwork. He's another guy that has great footwork, great fundamentals. That's why he's able to work from the mid-range, similar to Embiid. But you got to be smart when you're guarding him. You can't put yourself up in the air for no reason. Those pump fakes, that's going to be the biggest thing for them. But I think the key here is that the Bulls just don't have a real point guard that can get downhill. And that's normally what kills the Sixers, right? You saw against the Mavericks, Luka and Kyrie getting in the lane. They don't really have a guy like that. LaVine can get in the lane. I just don't view him as some prolific playmaker in that sense. He's more of a scorer. So just containing those two guys. Nikola Vucevic, that's an interesting one because he's a guy that has played well against us this season. But I would imagine just having to guard Embiid is going to be a big part of stopping him tonight. Embiid didn't play in that second game, if we're being honest. So that you can kind of, I don't want to throw it out, 11 Zach LaVine threes and no Embiid, but you can throw that game out as far as reality. So I think just all those things given, there's not much else to this Bulls team. And I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but I think the problem with this Bulls team is the fact that they don't have very good role players to fit in with these main pieces that they have, being Vucevic, Levine, and DeRozan. So stop them, and I think you stop the Bulls. The other thing that I'll throw kind of in the mix with that, because it helps the defensive end. Don't turn the ball over, right? You need to control the turnovers. That's how you let a lesser team in a game, by giving them easy buckets. They don't need to get out in transition, get wide open layups, make them work for every single bucket that they want to get in this game, and I think you'll fare well.
I just think the Bulls are a really good matchup for the Sixers, and you brought up the biggest part, right? The Sixers have issues with those quicker, smaller guards that can give you a bucket, right? We've seen it before with Cleveland. We've seen it with Dallas and Kyrie. Now, obviously, Luka is no small guard, but we've seen those kind of issues. Obviously, when we talk about wings, when you look at the likes of Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, they give the Sixers issues because they're one of the best wing tandems across the league. When I look at Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan, this is not a slight at them. There's a lack of explosiveness. There's a lack of quickness to them, athleticism to them. Right now, LaVine's a great athlete, can light it up from three at time. It does not scare me anywhere else inside the paint, right? DeRozan, is he going to kill me at the elbow tonight? I remember the one game, I think it ended with Embiid throwing DeRozan shit off the glass or shooting over DeRozan. DeRozan had like 42, still wasn't enough. I think it's a very good matchup for the Sixers. They lack role players, which this is going to be one of those rare games, rare occurrences where the Sixers bench should greatly outscore the opponent's bench tonight. You mentioned the point guard position. I think that's big. Over under the amount of times Patrick Beverley gets into it with somebody tonight. $10 he gets into it with James Harden at one point or another.
It's interesting because it feels as if him and James Harden are friends, quotation marks. You know, I don't know the relationship. I mean, it seems like he favors James Harden just from the couple times he appeared in media appearances.
They were together in Houston or no?
Houston. Yeah, they were together in Houston. But I don't think that stops Patrick Beverley from doing what he does. So I would say who's another fiery guy? Harden's definitely a candidate. Just depends if he wants to cross that line with Harden.
Niang?
I'm trying to think. He did play with PJ. Niang? Yeah, Niang. There we go. He's the instigator, the fire starter. I think they could clash tonight. That's a good one.
Not that they should really match up on one another often, but for sure. It's happening at least once. Hey, what's going on, my man? But yeah, man, any other keys you're looking at tonight? The Sixers, I hate to say it, and normally you don't think of it. The last couple of years, the Bulls have been a solid team, and yes, they're banged up. They lack depth, but to think that the Sixers are 15 games better than them, 8.5, 9-point favorites, albeit at home tonight, is wild to me, man. So anything else that you think goes into this game? What do you think stands out?
No, I mean, turnovers, controlling DeRozan and Levine. Obviously, rebounding is always a thing with the Sixers.
Always a fun one.
But I think I have my last key to victory written down here, and it's just enjoy this Embiid MVP experience.
It's a good one.
It's crazy right now because Embiid. We went over the numbers. 9 straight games of 30 plus, but just in the month of March, 36 points per game. 9 rebounds per game, 4.6 assists per game, 2.3 blocks per game, 63% from the field, 46% from the three-point line, 83% from the free throw line, and an 8-1 record in the month of March for Joel Embiid and the Sixers team. So it's just insane, and that's why my last key to victory. Just enjoy this ride because
end of game winner you can throw in there as well.
What was that?
End of game winner you can throw in there as well.
And a game winner on top of it against Portland where they complete a 21-point comeback. It's just been ridiculous. So just enjoy it, right? Take the time to soak it in, appreciate it, because we just most likely won't ever see something like this again unless he takes it up to another level next year. So just appreciating it. But is Joe playing? Great question, Abe. I don't know. Was he added to the injury report?
No, he's not on it right now. PJ is the only game time decision that I have popping up.
I'll be honest.
I haven't been on Twitter.
I don't think unless he is legitimately injured or dealing with something, I don't think they're going to sit him very much down this stretch, unless we get to the last few games and they don't mean anything at that point. I just don't see them sitting Embiid and potentially risking his MVP. And it's not that you should just play him, till the end of time because
Right.
he needs to go out here and get this MVP award. But I don't think unless there's something that is bothering him specifically that he's going to miss any time. And I didn't
Yeah, no,
see him
I
on the
think he's
injured
good.
report earlier.
No, yeah, and I'm on Twitter right now. I have not seen anything. He's good to go tonight. And also, you mentioned for the MVP fact, and they want to get that. They want to get him that award, I'm sure. But they still are fighting for seeding, right? They tied
Yeah.
Boston in the loss column the
Yeah.
other night. Now, obviously, the ball I forget what ball. Oh no, Boston lost to Utah the other night, which tied them in the loss column. So they are fighting for that seeding right now. Obviously, Milwaukee won last night, so I believe they're 2.5 ahead of the Sixers for that 1 seed. So it's not just the MVP, it's for the team right now as well.
Yeah.
Home floor obviously plays into it too. If he's going to play in Charlotte and in Indiana, he's going to come home and play, I would imagine. So
maybe if they sit him, maybe it's the game in Chicago. I don't see them sitting him though, honestly, unless he needs to be sat. But yeah, that's it's just incredible what Joel is doing. As far as injuries, the only thing I saw, Caruso is questionable for this game for Chicago. Which he would be the one point guard that I would say is above average on their team. James Harden is probable, and PJ Tucker was questionable the last time I checked. And that was on covers.com.
I know you mentioned it earlier in the beginning of the show, but it is truly amazing how much like we fawned over Joel Embiid this show, and for good reason. But it's just being like glossed over how spectacular James Harden has been, man. Like he really has, and he's somewhere in the middle of the highest of expectations and the bar that I had set for him and reality and what I expected, right? His numbers, what's he averaging on the year? Just under 22. So I said before the year, if you could get James Harden averaging 24 plus per game, he's not quite there, but Scotty, he does it in the biggest moments. You go back against Milwaukee. He did it a couple nights ago as well. Like,
against Cleveland.
He turns it up in specific quarters on specific possessions.
That's the
He'll
thing.
Have 20
He's
assists.
showing up against the great competition. Like you mentioned it. 11 points last game, but the game before that, 28 points, 14 or 12 assists, 6 rebounds against Cleveland. So he's showing up when it matters. I think that's the big part there.
Yep. And I did see Chili's point up top about Melton as a 6-man, and I think we've come full circle. We've done the full 180, went through the roller coaster of emotions this year on whether Melton needs to start or Maxey, and then Maxey finally goes to the bench, and we think it works. And see, they should have been doing this all along. We're right back to Maxey lighting it up as a scorer in the starting role. Melton looking more comfortable coming off the bench. It looks like the playoff rotation is starting to shape up a bit.
And maybe just maybe, something, and I'm just speculating here, maybe just maybe the way Shake has been playing so well when he comes in, he gets less minutes than Melton, obviously, for obvious reasons. Maybe there's just a little competition there between those two, which wouldn't be a bad thing when it comes to minutes, because you saw Shake with the great game against, I believe it was Charlotte, and then I think Melton had a terrible game against Charlotte, if I'm not mistaken.
It might have been... It might have been the game prior to that. It might have been, I think it was the Cavs game. Yeah, because it's when I took D-Melt over 1.5 threes, and I texted you. I'm like, oh, cool. Shake's playing in the fourth over Melton tonight. So
of course. Yeah, so maybe there's a little competition between the two backup guards there. Either way, though, I do agree. I think we figured that out.
Let's get into my favorite segment of the show here on DSM Pregame Live, and that is the best bet segment. As you guys know, we give you 3 player props or team props throughout each and every matchup. If you've been tailing, we're a consistent 2-1 night. We're a consistent profitable night over here on the pregame best bets. But we are looking for a clean sweep. That is always the goal. So tonight, let's try to get you there. Our first player prop on the board is Tobias Harris over 11.5 points at -130 on DraftKings Sportsbook. As Scotty mentioned in the beginning of the show, Tobias Harris on that 2-game road trip against Charlotte and Indiana. Tobias started to get his groove back a little bit, letting it fly a little bit more from 3, especially early on in the game. You come home against a team like Chicago, a little bit slower. I mentioned DeRozan. It could be a favorable matchup for Tobias to get going early and often tonight. And not to mention 12 points. realistically shouldn't be an issue. Like, this is one of those, I'm buying his number low. Tobias's number on a nightly average should probably be around 13.5, 14, somewhere around there. It's dropped down because of his lesser production as of late. We're buying low on Tobias Harris tonight, over 11.5 points. Secondly, I mean, the man we just talked about for 30 minutes, Joel Embiid, over 48.5 points, rebounds, and assists tonight. Obviously, if you have not been living under a rock, he has averaged this for the entire week leading up. He has 9 straight games of 30-plus points. He's had multiple double-digit rebound games. He's coming off in a 7-assist game last time out. Joel Embiid will continue his dominance tonight. Nikolai Vucevic is not a matchup in the low post for the big fella. He's going to get to the line, and he's going to grab rebounds tonight. Joel Embiid, at least 49 points, rebounds, and assists combined. And lastly, James Harden, over 31.5 points and assists. No rebounds included in this one. That one was a little bit higher. I think he would have needed, I think it was 38.5. So he would have needed 7 at least rebounds from that prediction at minus 120. Kind of what he averages, right, man? Like 22 and 10, 21 and 11, some kind of night like that for James Harden. Hell, maybe he has 20 assists again and only needs 11 points. I don't freaking know. But James Harden, 32-plus points and assists at minus 120 on DraftKings.
Yes, sir. I love all of these. To be fair to ourselves, we did go 3 for 3 on Friday.
Yes, we did. Yes, we did.
We did go 3 for 3 in
nice.
that. So maybe we're picking up some heat here, but nonetheless, I do like it. Like you said, Tobias Harris, he averages 15 points on the season per game. He just was going through a tough stretch there, so we're taking a leap with him, right? He had the 2 games on the road against
a little vote of confidence over here,
but the Bulls aren't much better than the Pacers per se, right? So we just want to see some consistency from Tobias. I think that feeds into it a little bit as well before we get to the playoffs. Embiid is like waking up with 49 points, rebounds, and assists.
Oh, yeah. He can,
so, whatever.
He can wear Uggs and PJ pants tonight and like 49 points, rebounds, assists.
And Harden's coming off rest, so I do think we'll get a decent showing from Harden tonight, which would get us those numbers. So I like it all around.
And you mentioned a key point to me before the show started. Obviously, they are 15 games better. They are 9-point favorites against Chicago Bulls, but I wouldn't assume this is going to be a 3-quarter night for Joel Embiid tonight and James Harden tonight. You would assume they're going to have
get that lucky, right?
Yeah, I know, right? So we'll see. You can't blow teams out by 30 every single night. So exactly. I would expect him to get his minutes tonight.
Same, man. That was the idea behind all of those stats coming in, especially with Joel and Harden, because luckily the last 2 games is getting those numbers before the 4th quarter anyway.
3 quarters.
You don't want to bank on that, but nonetheless, I think they do play in the 4th tonight. I think it's a little bit closer.
So with that being said, man, before we get you on out of here and get down to the center, give me your star of the game. Who stands out for the Sixers tonight, and do they come away with their 9th straight victory tonight?
Yes, so I do have them getting their 9th straight victory tonight. I have it pinned as 115, 104, around that range.
Okay.
Sixers hitting their season average, so right at their season average of points per game, and then giving up less than what they usually give up, because the Chicago team isn't as intimidating unless Zach LaVine is hitting 10-plus threes. So my player of the game, my star tonight, I'm going to step away from Harden. I'm going to step away from Embiid. I've even gone Maxey of late a lot. I'm going to go Tobias in this one. Building consistency. That's the biggest thing for me tonight. I want to see Tobias show up again tonight against a little bit better competition, but more importantly, for the 3rd game in a row, steps up, plays his role efficiently. I'm looking for Tobias to show up tonight. Maybe 3+ threes again, 2+ threes, anywhere in there. But definitely getting up over 12 points. I'm going to ping him for that for sure.
Yeah, come on, Toby.
12? I mean, come on, dog.
Yes, sir. I have the Sixers winning tonight as well, man. Obviously, as you know, the last show we did before Cleveland, I had them pinned as a loss just because can't win every game, right? But they are slowly and surely proving me wrong on this win streak. They've had multiple of these win streaks over the last 3 or 4 months or so. So I'm going with a win tonight. I think they show up. As far as covering 8.5, they've been doing it. I think this Bulls team is playing at a higher level. Maybe they don't win by double digits tonight. Maybe they win by 5, 6, 7, 8, somewhere in that area. And my player of the game, it's going to be that man in that Kentucky uniform on your wall behind you. And for this reason, you mentioned the lack of depth for the Chicago Bulls. You mentioned not really having a true point guard, and that kind of stays true on the defensive side as well. Pat Bev, Zach LaVine. I don't know who can guard.
I don't even think Beverly's quick enough to stay with
right.
him. I know Beverly's renowned as a
is
defender,
the thing for me, and whatever matchup you give him for the tougher guard, the tougher defender, James Harden's going to go to work on the opposite end, right? So I'm going to go with Tyrese Maxey. He was not in our best bets, obviously, so you would think I would assume he could have 19 points tonight, but I think Tyrese Maxey gets it going and gives them that jolt, that boost that they need. Because let's be honest, the older guys just had a birthday pass, Joel, James. They don't need to be giving you 35 and 12 a night. Let the young buck get in some work too. So I'm going with Maxey in a win.
And I think that's a good point with like the points, over 18 and a half, whatever the case may be. It's not really a point base for Maxey. It's more or less how he looks, right? Looks
for
comfortable, looks confident, letting the ball fly out of his hands. So I think that's the bigger thing tonight. It's more around efficiency and him getting his shots up, right?
Sure, because Maxey could give you 17 on 7 of 12 shooting, right?
Like exactly. Maybe he hits 3 threes. Right. Yeah, I feel that.
So Maxey and Tobias, players of the game, Sixers, come away with a W, get their 9th straight win in a row, and it's coming at the perfect time, man.
Yeah,
it really is. So obviously we'll probably be scoreboard watching over the next coming weeks, looking at the Bucks and the Celtics scores as well to see if the Sixers can climb up in the Eastern Conference standings. But first and foremost, they have to take care of their business on their home floor. Scotty, go get in your car and get down to the Wells Fargo Center.
I know. I gotta before we just to emphasize how important it is to get these dubs against Chicago. We got 2 in a row against Chicago. After that, you do have the Warriors, Suns, Nuggets, and Mavericks. So Warriors, Suns, Nuggets on the road. Then you get the Mavs back home. So you do have a little bit of a tough stretch coming up after these.
What is good with these road trips?
Save them all for the end, right? Yeah,
seriously, bro.
It'll make the MVP run a little bit more impressive, I guess you could say.
For sure, guys. With that being said, that is going to wrap up this edition of DSM Pregame Live. Don't forget, if you're new to the channel, hit that follow button on the Twitter account at DSM_media. Check out the link tree in our bio to take you to every social media platform we are available on. And most importantly, if you guys want to comment on each and every one of our shows, as well as watch these DSM Pregame Lives, make sure you are subscribed to the YouTube channel, turn on notifications for whenever we hit that live button. And thank you so much for commenting and subscribing for myself, for Scotty, and for the rest of DSM Media. Have a great rest of your night.
Go Sixers.